Hello, Brooklyn Nets fans, and welcome back. The Nets suffered another close to 40-point loss last night, giving up 148 points to the Boston Celtics, getting swept in a back-to-back versus the Spurs and the Celtics. And yet, am I not that mad? We break down that and so much more right here on today, Saturday, February 28th edition of the Brooklyn Boys Show. Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe right here on your way into the building, as that is the completely free and best way to help and support us grow right here on the channel. Quick note, I feel like I have to say this, and I should say this before we start. Some pretty crazy global conflict going on. Just know this channel will never, ever, ever get political, no matter what things look like. But as always, we're hoping for world peace. We're hoping for kindness to prevail. So that's all I will be touching on that matter. But come enjoy your Saturday evening with us. Chill out. Let's talk Nets, baby. That is the best way to approach things. And maybe, if nothing else, the Nets have a very bright future ahead of them come the draft and moving forward. So that's the only thing I'll be saying on that matter as a whole. But jumping right into things, this team in the back-to-back. First of all, 7 straight losses. And for the Pro Tank crowd, I don't think you can figure out a better way to come out of the All-Star break. Bridging together a sea of losses to make it 7 in a row after the Nets looked like they might have been turning a corner and starting to win a couple games before the All-Star break. Jordy pivots, says no thank you, turns this ship around, and we're right back headed in the tanking direction. So much progress has been made, in fact, that the Nets are only a half game behind the Indiana Pacers for that number 2 worst record in the league. And the higher you get, if you're in the top 3, your odds at the number 1 pick stay the same. But the higher you get, the lower your floor is. So first pick, lowest you can get is 5, second 6, and third is 7. So if the Nets even jump up Indiana, they don't get better odds for that number 1 pick, but their ceiling is higher. So obviously, the better job you do at a tank job, the more reward and the more incentive there will be come draft season. So that's what the Nets are tanking for / playing for at this point in the season. But again, a 148-111 loss to the Boston Celtics last night. And you look at this game on paper, and fans are going to say, okay, this Nets team was terrible. They were uncompetitive the entire night, another terrible loss. And, when is this team ever going to fix things up? But I do not view it the same way. I get it. This team put on an all-time bad defensive performance last night. But that is still not the way I'm going to view things, because I want to focus on the positives. The entire season, the entire offseason, we talked about focus on the positives come the season, see how the rookies develop, and you'll work from there into the offseason when there's hopefully a brighter future ahead. So why has the season started and all of a sudden all Nets fans can do is highlight the negatives of this team? I don't understand it. Literally, all offseason we preached about, let's look for positives as we know the season is going to be sailing through rough waters and try and get out of it on the other side. All right. It's going to be a fight. You're going to get scratched up a little bit, but try and survive it. But that's completely not been the mindset from this fan base, and I don't understand it. Guys, we said we were going to look at the positives. Let's do that. Let's look at the positives. A great first half last night against a very, very good Celtics team. Back-to-back, playing the number 2 team in the West on Thursday night. I'll talk about that game a little bit if we would like. That was a pretty miserable game. I'll give you that. But last night, the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics, without Jason Tatum, that is a damn good basketball team that just won an NBA final 2 years ago. That is a first half last night that made me very, very proud as a Brooklyn Nets fan. This team, not only did they stay competitive with a great team the entire first half, they were going blow for blow with the number 2 team in the conference. but they looked damn good while doing it. It wasn't just Boston missed shots. The Nets put on a first half clinic last night. It was a well-rounded half, scoring contributions from all over the place. You even had Josh Minott in his return to Boston getting a poster. A poster. I'm going to have to hang it right back there. Claxton over LeBron, you might be getting replaced because Josh Minott, that was filthy. For your first bucket with a new team, Josh Minott goes in and does that. So let's give credit where credit's due. That was a disgusting dunk. All right, and he played very, very well in the minutes Jordy allotted him, as did a lot of guys. Grant Nelson made his Nets debut last night. We'll get into that. He was looking good as well. And this team in the first half, well-rounded all around, and a higher scoring first half. Basically, if you exclude that Washington game, which is a clear outlier, where the Nets scored, 64 first half points or something ridiculous like that, you exclude that outlier game, this is one of the better halves of basketball the Nets have played all season. Maybe that second half against Orlando, where Yegor went off and forced overtime, that's probably the best half of basketball. And that Washington game, this is probably the best half of basketball the Nets have played since then. So you love to see that. And even though you're going to look at the final box score and you're going to go, oh my goodness, this team got blown up by 40 points. But no, that can't be the way you see it if you watch that first half. That had to make you very, very proud as a Brooklyn Nets fan. Smash the like button and hit subscribe if you're tuned in with us live. Also, best way to interact is in the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, reactions. Anything Nets related goes there for us to react to later into the show. And then there's also the paid way to support the show. If you're new here, we have unlocked the Super Chats feature. So any Super Chat will get read immediately as soon as it pops up, cuts the line, interrupts me. You'll go immediately. Super thanks, super stickers. All that is the paid way to support the show. And get in on all the stuff that goes into it behind the scenes. So thank you all for tuning in. And even if not, hitting like and subscribe does just as much, rather. So thank you anyway. And tuning in as well does just as much. So anyway, you're supporting the show is, of course, much appreciated. That first half made me very, very proud as a Brooklyn Nets fan. And then in that second half, it looked a little bit more. Reality came and hit the Nets like a freaking monster truck running over a toddler. That was a little bit more the game I was expecting. Second night of a back-to-back and a finals contending team versus the Nets. Yeah, that second half was a lot more like what I was expecting heading into the night than what we saw in that first half. Boston showed why they are simply the better team, and I don't think there is a better way to say it. Eric White and Jaylen Brown, as well as basically everybody else on the floor. Like, there wasn't a guy on the floor that was a minus yesterday for the Celtics. Literally everybody went insane. Yegor's old friend Hugo Gonzalez, all of them, the whole crew, went berserk. Like, truly one of the better shooting performances I have seen in a basketball game. Exclude levels. I mean, elementary, middle, high school, JV, varsity, D1, D3, JUCO. That is one of the better shooting performances you will ever find on a basketball court from basically the entire Boston group. And obviously, Brown led them, the MVP candidate, because of that 65 game rule. He's going to be in talks for the MVP award. They shot 65% from three in that game. And it was only better in the second half. It was only trending upwards. 67% from the field. I'll give you the disparities. So Brooklyn shot 49% from the field, which is not bad for the Nets. 50% from the field is not bad at all for the Nets. 67% from the field for the Celtics. From three-point range, the Nets shot 41%. That's better than most nights. You don't see many nights where the Nets are above 45% from three. Get this, Boston 65% from downtown. So it was whatever you do, I'll just do it 5 times better. That was basically Boston's mindset the entire night. I wonder what Joe Mazzulla tells that team when they can just go out there and score 148 regulation points. And in that fourth quarter, basically, I mean, the entire fourth quarter was a joke. The game was way out of hand by then because the Nets had it at 9 at the half. It was already 20 early into that third quarter when Boston went on that run. So, I mean, what's the message at this point? Keep beating up on that team? Boston set a ton of history, franchise history, and I think maybe a little bit of NBA history. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think Boston, they did have a shooting performance for the ages. The best adjusted shooting percentage in NBA history in a single game. It was like 80 something percent. And if you're new, that is a stat that takes regular shooting percentage and basically adjusts it, calculating that a 3-point bucket is worth more than a 2-point bucket. So it's basically your adjusted efficiency. And Boston broke the NBA record. Now, there's two sides of the same coin, as the old saying goes. It takes two to tango. So this wasn't just Boston all by themselves. It was also a confluence of other events, including the Nets' horrific, terrible defense as a whole, and specifically the transition defense. And that is what I need to get off my chest. This team, for the life of them, I don't know if it starts up top with Jordy. He seems to realize it's a problem. I see him every single time the Nets get a quick bucket, yelling at the guys to get back in transition, get back and play defense because Boston was running the floor with numbers all night long. So I don't know how the fix to the problem becomes. Maybe it's an inexperience factor. Maybe these rookies just simply can't handle the pace that a great team like the Boston Celtics will run you at. They were ramping up everything, and the Nets simply couldn't keep up. They turned it into a track meet where they had a 50-meter head start, a 50-yard head start on the 100-yard dash. That's exactly what it was. And Boston is simply a better basketball team. But when you take the skill set that they have, that their 3-point shooting brought them, and you add on the fact that the Nets were just feeding them countless transition opportunities, what do you expect to happen? What do you expect to happen? And Boston took the most of that. They took advantage of that, flipped it in their direction, and that's how you get a score that ends up looking like a 40-point blowout, even when you watch back that first half and you say, my word, Nets look good right now. But that is exactly how you flip that on its head and send it right into Boston's direction. Smash that like button and hit subscribe if you're tuned in with us live. Make sure you get questions, comments, thoughts over in the chat. Best way to interact with the community, drop questions in there. We'll react to those in just a couple of minutes when we finish up talking Nets. And then the paid way to support the show, as I mentioned, is with the super chats, and those immediately cut the line. They get brought up instantly. So you got anything you want to get off your chest? You want to support the show the paid way? That is the way. Mentioned it at the top, 7th loss in a row for Brooklyn. Cleveland is next on the schedule. A little look at. Cleveland is next. That's tomorrow, Sunday at 3:30. So a little matinee afternoon. Another one of those kid games that the S Network loves to do. And then 2 against Miami. A home and home against Miami. A sneaky tough team. And coming off of 7 in a row, Cleveland, who just lost in overtime, took the number 1 seed Pistons down to the wire, lost by a handful of points last night in overtime. They actually had Evan Mobley teed up for the win. He missed the three-pointer, or rather for the tie, missed a three-pointer that potentially could have sent the game into double OT. But they just beat the Knicks last week. Cleveland's a very, very good team. And we've seen them play Brooklyn before this season. Hasn't been close. And then Miami, also a very good team. This could easily become 10 losses in a row for the Brooklyn Nets. Cleveland and 2 against Miami. You're already coming in losing 3 straight. You get swept versus 2 very good teams. Morale is low right now for the Brooklyn Nets. I would not be surprised if they end up losing 10 in a row. The only other team on the worst winning streak right now in the league is the Chicago Bulls, who have lost. He got to get his puppies in order over there in Chi-Town, because that is not good company to be in for a team that supposedly wants to contend, to be fighting with the Nets to see who has a longer losing streak. So Chicago, you definitely got some work to do in that department. Clean things up, or else Brooklyn will hunt you down for the longest losing streak. Further look ahead, we mentioned Indiana only a half game ahead of the Nets. But in first place, they seem right now a little bit ungettable, unreachable. The Sacramento Kings, who lost a franchise worst 16 games in a row. The streak just got snapped a couple days ago. They're only at, or rather, they're still at 14 wins. The Nets are only at 15. Brooklyn is only 2 games back of the Kings for that number 1 worst record in the NBA. Best odds at the number 1 pick and the lowest possible floor. You can only go as low as 5 at that point. So you're guaranteed a top 5 pick if you get that number 1 pick. And as untouchable as the Kings seem right now, 2 games back is not a lot. When you still have more than 20 games to play in the season, we just mentioned 3 very, very tough opponents coming up against the Nets, likely going to parlay that into a 10-game losing streak. And all of a sudden, you're flirting, you're knocking on the door of that number 1 pick. You're that number 1 odds. We know the NBA loves to mess around when it comes to draft lottery. So I would not be securing my thoughts of anything, no matter where you end up. You could be the Mavericks with the worst odds, swoop in and get the number 1 pick. So let's not count our chickens before they hatch here. But the Nets could be knocking on the door of that number 1 spot. You go full throttle from here on out in the tank. And, I mean, reality is starting to set in for me. It should for you at home as a Net fan. Like, this is getting... No longer is it this materialistic idea, as we were talking about in the off seasons, we were talking about back in November, back in October, that man, this team's gonna be one of the worst 3 teams in the league. It's real now. It is real. And in one of the better drafts this league has ever seen, with so many blue chip prospects coming out, and no pick in 2027, now more than ever do you need to complete what you started. Tank it up. Nets fans, if you've seen the schedule moving forward, in terms of strength of opponent, it does not get any easier in March. Brooklyn had a horrible month of February, if you want to talk about positives to take away. How'd they start the month of February? A 77-130 loss to the Pistons, in which Igor Gioman scored on his own basket. So that's how the month started, for comparison. And then they got blown out by the Lakers, blown out by the Magic, and they actually beat the Wizards, beat the Bulls. Those were the 2 wins of that period. And they end up going 2-10 in the month of February. But look ahead to March. And again, reality should be setting in. There are so many good teams left on the schedule. We mentioned the three: Cleveland, Miami, Miami on the home and home to start. Detroit, the Grizzlies, which is I guess probably the one beatable game you have in this stretch. Back against Detroit, Atlanta, Philly, Portland, Oklahoma City, the Knicks, the Kings. Now that's going to be a tank off. Sunday, March 22nd. Mark your calendar. Trailblazers, Warriors, Lakers, Kings, Hornets. That is the month of March on the schedule. A very, very busy month. The last full month of NBA basketball, you have the first, 12 days of April to round out your season at the end there. But at this point, the tank is officially on. The race to the bottom is here. It's clear. The path has been laid out. Brooklyn is well on their way. And I think these last two against Boston and San Antonio cement that. Smash the like button and hit subscribe if you're tuned in with us live. Get questions, comments, thoughts over in the chat. Best way to interact with the community. We broke down everything relating to this. And now we will react to all your questions, comments, thoughts. Had to get that banner up real quick. So make sure you get those in. Chat is open, baby. From there, and then we'll just go as long as you guys got me. Any more questions, comments, thoughts you guys may have. What's up to a couple people who've already popped in the building. Lucas comes in and he asks, Nets are sold on Yegor's point guarding duties. I think so. I definitely think there could be more guys in the mix, but Yegor's done a nice job. Obviously, the three-point shooting has been much better than you would have expected coming into the year. He's been a competent ball handler, hasn't made too many huge, unjustifiable mistakes like Ben Saraf has when he's been up. He's been bad and inefficient with those turnovers. But Traore, I think, also could be gunning for the role. And that's the backcourt that Coach Jordi Fernandez has really liked over the past month or so. I think the biggest lesson you learned from the month of February is Nolan Traore's role and how much this team likes him. And I think they are really, really sold on Nolan Traore. And he is starting to get a little bit of national media attention. The assist numbers shot up. The points shot up. And really, Traore from this past month, what I learned was how his confidence grew. You go back to January, Nolan Traore is not attacking the rim like he did this month. I was at the Spurs game. I was courtside for the first quarter. Watching Nolan Traore attack on Victor Wembanyama? Are you kidding me? 2 months ago, I would have called you insane. He's taking on bigger defenders, a bigger size, with more confidence. And I think Nolan Traore is where the Nets want to go. When you draft 5 rookies, sure, you hope they all turn out, but that's unrealistic. But I think the Nets are really starting to sell themselves on Nolan Traore in the best way possible. And what that means is that just opens up more roads for Yegor to become a shooting guard, to get more shots up. There was talks of him going to the 3 to play the small forward in the offseason. That door could still be open. We know the Nets do like to play a little positionless basketball from time to time. But if you get Traore to man the backcourt and handle the ball duties, I think that just opens up the three-point shot from Yegor and helps develop his game as well. It's complementary. Obviously, that doesn't mean you shut down Yegor and that idea of him moving forward with the ball handling duties, but I do think Traore is a very, very good option that you want to keep in your mind if you're Brooklyn. Excuse me. Make sure you hit like and subscribe if you're tuned in with us live. Good question there, Lucas. Very good question. Let's head over to Jason, who says, on the bright side, there are only 24 games left. Whew, 24. Is that where we are? I guess that math adds up at all the way down. When you lose 148 to 111 and you're all the way down at the slums, you're just looking at how many are left. But to be honest, soak them in. This next month and a half, March, is here in 3 hours. This next month and a half is it. You get 2 weeks of summer league, and we're done with Nets basketball for 6 months. So, yeah, on the bright side, there's 24 games left. Sure. But I'm not ready for it to go. It's going to be a very bittersweet ending. This is going to be one of the worst Nets seasons of my life, and yet I'm still not going to be ready to give it up. It's like a piece of me goes. Because you know what, Jason? You say that, but then you get these forgotten role players in 5 or so years. It was Trendon Watford for me last year. I loved T. Watt. Nets fans hated him. I loved T. Watt. And a couple years ago, it was guys like Chris Chiozza, these forgotten end of the bench guys that you're never going to hear about again, that aren't going to make the roster next year. And you're just going to look back and you're going to smile. So let's enjoy this roster while we have it. It's going to be the last time we watch the 2025-26 Nets as we know them. And I am going to reminisce on this team. Even though they're about to lose 10 straight games, and it's going to be brutal. And I'm going to be looking at my feet saying, what the hell with this team? When's it ever going to change? Why has it always been like this my whole life? But you have to. You reminisce on this team. It's always a bittersweet moment, that last game of the season. You know what's not a bittersweet moment? You know what's going to be tense? The draft lottery. Now, that's a night that's going to make or break this franchise. I never look forward to draft lottery day, even though it's what the entire season leads up to. I get nervous. And last year, the way they push the Nets back, that scares me, man. It really does. I'll get to that one in a second from Lucas. Let me go to Jonathan first. His first time in the chat. What's up, Jonathan? He says, Jordy keeps playing MPJ, Claxton, and man, seems like Yegor, Wolf, Powell, and Nolan Traore become side characters. Will the vets get rested soon so the rookies can get more development? I'm perfectly fine with Terrence Mann. I feel like it was kind of Jordy's due diligence to play him a little bit more because when he hit those, when he had 17 points earlier this week, I feel like it's kind of Jordy's due diligence to get him a little bit of run or to get the side eye from the media. Claxton, though, I have no problem still playing. I still think Danny Wolf has a lot to do. Powell's down in the G League, so that's why you didn't see him. He got assigned, and Minot, obviously. Grant Nelson got called up. So that's why you didn't see any of Powell, but I don't think Nolan Traore has become a side character at all. Mentioned it before, I think his role has continued to grow. And no, ANG, all them rookies suck. No, they do not. That is simply untrue. You must not watch the Nets if you think that's the case. Let's head up back to Lucas. He says, if we draft AJ or Darren Peterson, who's going to the bench, Yegor or Nolan? That's certainly one for hopefully a question that we're going to have to debate. I think that Yegor Gioman stays at the starting guard to man the backcourt if you grab a guy like Darren Peterson. But Darren Peterson can play the forward. AJ DeBan's very athletic. Boozer's also a forward. So all these very athletic guys at the top end of the draft, he can kind of slide him around. But even if, I would guess Traore goes to the bench over Yegor if we're playing the one or the other game. But even so, I still think Traore gets his role carved out, and he'll find his people to be with next year as well. Jonathan once more comes in and says, Brooklyn being a bottom 3 team gives them some certainty with locking up a top 7, 6, or 5 pick. That's what we talked about early. Given the Pacers 2026 could be taken by LA, Nets can get top 4. Yes, that would be awesome. Given the Pacers 2026 could be taken by LA, can the Nets get a top 4? I'm not really sure what the question is. Yes, the Nets can get a top 4 pick. Hopefully that's the case. Please clarify that one, though. Jonathan, let's head to Jason. He said, I totally get that. I loved when Dennis Schroeder played for the Nets, even when the team was bad. Amen. Schroeder. That whole team was fun. Mikal Bridges back in the when that Selly was still alive. I think I might have a bobblehead from that. I don't on me, but I was there. They were giving out, the Bridges 3-point Selly. That team was fun. I feel like there's positives from every Nets team. Back in the way, way, way back days, back when I first started watching the Nets, and you had Rondé Hollis Jefferson teams, you had Karis LeVert on the bench, and that famous gif of everybody up on the Nets bench dancing after a three, Joe Harris on that team. So you can't make it up. There is nothing quite like a teenager and his bond to a couple random role players that have fun time on the bench. I mean, I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules. We're all just living in a Dennis Schroeder world, to be honest. Let's take a step back. We're all living in Dennis Schroeder's world. Getting a center has become a big topic this summer. Keeping Dayron as a backup makes sense. I completely agree. Wolf could get some run at center if Claxton gets moved. Any center that you think makes sense for Brooklyn? First of all, I honestly think that Brooklyn keeps Nick Claxton after this year. Like, this has been close to that 2022 year. This is going to be a career year for Nick Claxton, completely shattering the assist record for a center in Nets history. So I think there's a good chance that Nick Claxton stays. We've seen Sean Marks' affinity to him in last offseason when he basically it sounded like he really didn't want to move off of him. Is there a center that I think makes sense? I think you're going to hear a lot of Domantas Sabonis rumblings. Kings are bad. I think they're going to want to be bad again. I don't think they're ready to go in, have 2026 be their year. I think they want to get a top draft pick, but then keep on tanking, kind of like what the Pistons did. So if the Kings do go that route, I think they'd be happy to give away a guy like Sabonis. Maybe if you're talking trade market, you could try and big splash after a big like Bam Adebayo. Man, you pair a Bam Adebayo with Cam Boozer and Yegor Gioman, and this team makes a run at the Eastern Conference Finals. I would keep your eyes out, Jonathan, on a guy like Bam. All right? That's what I got for you. I don't know if Miami wants to do that. Miami's kind of stuck in this awkward limbo. Feels like ever since Jimmy Butler took them to the conference finals, they've been mediocre. I like Jaime Hawkins. Norm Powell, that was a great move going out and getting him. Do they want to compete? Do they not? But I would love Bam Adebayo. Peyton Watson and Dean Wade have been mentioned as free agent options for Brooklyn to utilize their cap space on this summer. Is Watson attainable? And if so, at what price? Does Wade make sense too? Peyton Watson, I mean, he might make sense, but how many more of these sort of filler guys does Brooklyn want if it's a year where they want to go deep? I honestly don't know his market yet. We'll have to see come off-season time. Dean Wade could make sense depending on the situation and who Brooklyn has. Because remember, it's not only the Nets' first-round pick this year. They have a slew of second-round picks, not only their own, but they're owed a couple from around the league. So they'll add back-end roster depth. Maybe those are just going to be, a couple of those second-rounders just going to end up being Summer League guys or maybe, Long Island guys. But I think it all depends, really. I think the Nets have a total of 4 picks between the first and second. They only have their own for the first, but then a couple of those seconds could fit in well as well. And we'll take one more before we wrap. I actually discussed Bam with some other people on the podcast the other day. Bam and Cam Boozer or Kalen Wilson would be sick combos. Bam could definitely work, depend on the trade price. Right, and I think Miami would be willing to move in that sort of lost direction. Pat Riley's had an interesting sort of opinion, or really that entire management and that front office has been interesting with the way they've all been caught in limbo again since Jimbo took them to the finals as a 7th seed. I would love Bam, man. Bam is such a fun player. That Team USA gold medal run. Do you see Sean Marks spending a lot of money this offseason on free agents? Why not, Jason? You get a league-breaking amount of cap space. You want to compete. Now's the time. If not now, when? I think that's how the saying goes. If not now, when? You have a league-breaking amount of cap space. Why would you not spend it on a year where you don't have your pick, where you want to contend? Go get Bam Adebayo. Go get that first-round pick. Go shore up some depth and go make a run in the playoffs. Go make a new identity as a Nets roster, and we will leave it there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you made it wire to wire, all I can really say is thank you. You guys are the best. This community continues to grow, almost at 600 subscribers. If you haven't done so yet, Take 2 seconds out of your day, hit like, hit subscribe, completely free. Best way to help support the growth. Not only does it show your support, but it pushes our content out to fellow Nets fans to help grow this community bigger, stronger, better. The more the merrier, baby. That's all I got from the best borough in the world. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Little late night Nets on a Saturday night. Nothing better. I'm Josh Wolliver signing off for the Brooklyn Boys Show. Thank you, Jason. Have a great night. Stay safe, everybody. And as always, let's go Nets. The tank is on, folks. Stay safe.